Tiffany, let's call this thing to order at 6:33 p.m. today. And I don't believe we have any citizens forum. Is that correct?
No citizens forum.
All right, so let's head to the next item. And Jared, you were going to, I believe, lead us through with Jeff. There's resign. The next steps are.
Yep, I can actually lead this if
Perfect.
that's fine with you, Jared. So Jeff resigned from the board, which means that Kaylin has stepped in as a voting board member, and it was approved by council. So congratulations and welcome. So next so Todd will be the interim chair right now. So the board needs to decide whether we will continue with an interim chair and run the board with only one chairperson, or vote for a chair, and Todd would be eligible for this. So first, if anybody has any questions, does anybody have any questions? If not, we'll need a motion to either continue with Todd as the interim chair or to vote for a chair.
So I have a preference, if I could voice my preference. If it's not technically a question, but my preference would be, if I'm going to continue in a vice chair or chair, I highly recommend that there is going to be somebody brought on so that there is a chair and a vice chair. So that would be my preference. If anybody disagrees with that, let's talk about that. If they're just wanting me to continue on my own, but I don't prefer that.
I mean, I agree. I think it's a two-person job.
So the logistics of it would be to make a motion to nominate a chair then.
Also, I have a question. Is anybody else interested that we should actually consider before we taking a motion? And maybe we'll continue with Todd for this meeting and next meeting. And if somebody is interested, that person has the opportunity to come on board. And does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I will be willing, if you guys want me to be chair, I'll continue in that position. If you guys want me to, if not, that's totally fine as well. But is there anybody else that would also be interested in the vice chair or the chair position on the call? I think that's a great question, Michelle.
I would be interested in vice chair.
Okay.
All right. I move to nominate Todd as the chairperson and Aaron as the vice chair.
So we'll actually need to motion first whether we're going to continue as Todd as the interim or vote for a chair. So the motion would be either to vote for a chair.
Okay, I move the motion to vote for a chair.
Okay, and then
I
we'll
move
need
to
a
nominate
second.
Todd. Do we have a second?
So we'll need to the motion. The second would be to motion to vote for a chair.
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to write as Ramesh is voting for a chair and then Patrick as second. So we'll need to vote for that. If everyone is in favor of voting for a chair, please raise your hand. So Aaron Anderson, yes. Michelle, yes. Aaron, yes. Patrick, yes. Ramesh, yes. Kaylin, yes. Todd, yes. Okay, the motion has passed. And now we'll take motions for the chair position.
So Patrick, did you already raise the first motion for Todd as a chair?
I actually got my motions out of order as the political scientist. I'm performing badly. So I move that Todd be nominated for chair.
I second the motion.
Patrick and Ramesh. All right. So the motion is to have Todd as chair. If you vote yes, can you please raise your hand? Aaron Anderson, yes. Michelle, yes. Aaron, yes. Patrick, yes. Ramesh, yes. Kaylin, yes. Todd, yes. So the motion has passed. Todd is the new chair. And so now
Congratulations, Mr. Storch.
Congratulations.
Yes,
So now we'll need to vote for a vice chair.
so I move the motion to nominate Aaron as the vice chair.
I second it.
Michelle second. And so if you vote yes for Aaron to be the vice chair, please raise your hand.
Probably should say the last name, just because
Aaron Anderson, sorry.
Yeah.
Aaron Anderson, yes.
Aaron Anderson, yes. Michelle votes yes. Aaron votes yes. Patrick, yes. Ramesh, yes. Kaylin, yes. Todd, yes. So the motion has passed. Aaron Anderson is the vice chair.
It's too easy.
Congratulations, Aaron.
Yeah, congratulations. I was hoping for some drama.
I was hoping for not drama.
You didn't get nominated.
Yeah, I'm hoping for no drama.
Yeah, exactly.
No drama, but Ramesh, we'll be sure to give you all the drama as it comes forward.
I'm going to warn you guys, next time anyone quits, I'm going to cause a drama so bad you would change your mind. so no quitting for this entire term.
All right. Well, Aaron Anderson, Aaron with an A, AA, however we'll say it, but congratulations. I'm looking forward to working with you. You and I have had plenty of conversations outside of Smart City, and we're practically neighbors, so that's pretty cool. But I think from the bigger picture, I'm just excited to move forward. So in order to do that, let's get to the next section. Tiffany, do you want to? We need to approve the minutes from last meeting, so we'll need a motion for that in a second.
And just so you guys are aware, I spelled Kaylin's last name wrong, so sorry about that, and I'll get those corrected.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Patrick seconds.
And if everyone votes yes, please raise your hand. Okay. Minutes are approved.
Thank you. So with our next section of the meeting, we have a section called Review Open Meetings and How the Board Would Interact. And so, ultimately, we really want to have a little bit of a reset board call today. We've had a number of little things, a little bit start and stop. We've had some new members, and now we have a board member that has resigned that happened to be our chair. And so we want to just kind of have a reset. I mean, Kaylin, we're so excited that you're here. Aaron B, we're so excited that you're here too. So in order to kind of get us all on the same page, because a lot of work was done up until this point. And so it's a good time to reset. So Jared, if you'll take this section on open meetings and how we interact, this time is yours.
Yeah. So refresher, obviously we just had to go through Robertson's rules where we make motions and we vote and those types of things. It's just it's recently been brought up at council. And so I want to make it clear to you guys about open records and communication. And Patrick's always very good about reminding us not to get subgroups together of more than 4 or more than 3, being 4 or more. We cannot get together or have an email related to those things. We just need to continue to, work through Tiffany and myself. If you have communications that need to get broadcasted, if you have questions or anything related back to the city that comes back through Tiffany, just kind of order of business. I really want to make sure that, to Ramesh's point, we don't like drama. We don't want drama. So everyone want to treat everybody with respect and all that sort of good stuff. If there are things that need to be discussed that are could be personal in nature, just please let me know. We can take care of it offline. It doesn't have to happen in this meeting. It's really kind of the refresh for me. If you have any questions, Tiffany probably can answer better than me or Patrick, but that's really what that item's about. So any questions?
And then Jared, just for all of us, I mean, this is the first type of board like this I've been on, and a lot of folks also. But we definitely use those rules of order, and there's gonna be times in these discussions where we are gonna have disagreements, and there is gonna be some good discussion, because that's really what we we need to be doing is to do that. But just for everybody's sake, like if we get to a stopping point, if there is that, I mean, what I think ultimately we need to come to you or Tiffany and help us move along.
Right. So let's say we were at a discussion point and we were at an impasse where we're really not making any headway. We're not making any movement towards any specific item. I can't think of a good example. But if there was something to that effect, we could make a motion to table it, and everyone can say, okay, we'll table it till the next meeting and we move on. We can make a motion just to not do anything with it, leave it, or without making a motion, technically, we could not have an action related to an agenda item and just continue past it. That happened in council. An example there was where an agenda item was for a cancellation of a meeting, and they basically made took no action on the item and moved past it, agreed to move past it, noting that they were not canceling the meeting. They were going to continue on with the meeting. I don't know if that's more confusing or or it's just kind of those are the kind of the tools of the tool belt that we have when we have a situation where we can force a table by making a motion and then having a second to move on. We can all agree that we're not going to take any action and move on. Those are the basic steps of what we can do when we have those scenarios where we would have a disagreement we couldn't get to a resolution on.
Anybody have thoughts, questions of Jared on that at all? Anybody?
I would note probably the most important part of this and the discussion of this is that we cannot have a quorum meeting up somewhere else. Meaning we cannot have a majority of us meeting up at, say, one of the coffee shops in town or one of the restaurants in town or something else. I think that is the absolute critical thing. Like, we can meet in pairs. We can probably meet up 3 of us, but that's kind of the limit.
So let's,
and I think
let's talk specifically on that, Patrick. And that's a great point. It's a really great point. And all of us, except maybe Caitlin and Aaron B, as we work through our first year together of trying to determine how do we work and what is that quorum? I mean, Jared or Tiffany, will you just to set us all on the same page, what gets us in trouble? And let's just talk about that so everybody is on the same page.
Go ahead.
So ideally, basically all work should be done at the meetings. So when you start meeting with people with a group of 4, that's a quorum. So replying all to an email that should be a no-go. So subcommittees, you want to try to avoid those as much as possible, and ideally just try to do as much work in the meetings as possible. Does that give you clarification?
So the only clarification I'll add on to that is there is still an expectation that we all do research, and you can still do that individually or even in a pair. That can still occur. It's just when you get to a broader group and what we don't want to have happen is if you're researching something, a topic, and it becomes a discussion and you pull in another member, and then next thing you know, we're talking about a specific research topic that turns into a meeting, quote unquote, a meeting, because we've hit a quorum, and then now we run into a records issue. It wasn't posted, it wasn't on an agenda, all those types of things that we have to be concerned about. So going forward, if when we start talking about, we'll get to it, the agenda, there's an item on starting about agendas. If we start talking about portfolios again, where we signed up, we don't want any more than 2s. Right. So on any given topic. So that's really, but the big gist is we got to be careful about getting into groups 4 or more. Creates a quorum, creates a record, creates a notion of work happening outside of this meeting that would be considered behind the curtain if you've ever heard people talk about that, where that decision was made behind whatever closed doors. That's what we want to avoid. So it's just a perception as well as the rules.
Yeah, you just basically want to make sure that the public is able to see all the decisions that the board has made.
So, and again, it's probably less frequent an opportunity in this board, but with the city council, there's specifically with the events in the winter, things being blasted out, emails going around and things like that. It's just you got to be careful you don't end up in a quorum situation. That's all. So that's where, for example, the communication should be funneled through Mike Land for the city council. It'll be funneled through myself or Tiffany for the board. So any of that stuff needs to happen. So. Yeah, I know we've talked about this before. It's just this is a refresher, reminder. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I feel like it's been years since our last meeting. So.
Yeah, well, it's a super point, and for most all of us that are just in business and not in the public, it takes some getting used to. Not hitting a reply or throwing out an email or a text to multiple people. Just say, hey, what do you guys think about this? I was thinking, what do you guys think? That would be very, very normal, and it's taken me, to get used to some of that. But definitely no more than 4. 2 people that we talked about, doing research, doing things outside of this meeting to bring back to the meeting for more discussion and potentially a motion and vote. Those pairs can do that stuff. But reply alls are a no-no. That's why Tiffany sends out emails kind of in a blind standpoint where you only see her name on it. So there's no accidental quorums brought up. And then if there's any documents that we want to share, we need to send those specific documents to Jared or Tiffany to be posted into the SharePoint folder. And Kaylin, I'm sure that you have access to that now, and Aaron B, you have access to that also. So we don't share the document across everybody's email. If it's going to be for the board, let's get it in SharePoint, and then everybody has access to it, so it doesn't cause a meeting to happen just by saying, "Look at this cool thing I found." All right.
And just a reminder, the SharePoint, the documents shouldn't be working documents. They should be like PDFs, final documents.
Yeah, we're not going to have an open Word document that we're all collaborating and leaving comments and stuff for, which would be very natural in the work environment, but in the city side, we don't do that. So just for FOIA. Okay. I know we've talked about this a bunch, but are there any questions? Does it make sense to everybody? We all good to move forward?
I have a question regarding, like you mentioned, Jared, if we come to an impasse, you can make a motion to table it or whatever. Is there a resource that I've overlooked or forgotten about that would tell me other motions that are available to handle different situations in these meetings?
I can get back with you on that. I have to talk to our city secretary on our, we use Legistar, and it keeps all the motions, all the records of the votes. But when I create the minutes and everything, it doesn't show up on that. So I'll have to touch base with her and see how they usually go about that.
She's asking about the resource in general for Robert's rules. Do we have, I know we've done it. There's a training scenario that we have available, but I don't know about it besides.
Okay. And I was like, that would be great if you have a video. I'm just like wondering, so that's great to know. Make a motion if I think we should move forward and see if everybody else agrees. I'm just wondering other situations, if there might be motions that are appropriate to make, or if you literally just make up the motion. And then
sorry. I teach political science at UT Dallas, and so I would tell you, like, Google Robert's Rules of Order, so you get the basics of the procedure, and so you understand what motions can be made, which motions take seconds, because some motions don't take seconds. Other motions do. Like a motion to table does not require a second. I actually pulled one of these off at the university 2 months ago when we had a controversy come up. So, it's worth a little bit of research. And, there's good online resources for how Robert's Rules of Orders work.
Thank you. I got it. That's exactly what I was wanting to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I would tell you to do.
And I'll confirm. I think we might have had I don't want to call it a cheat sheet, but a document that might have a little bit, wouldn't be as broad. But I'll follow up. And if I find something,
if Crystal has like some FAQ document that she's done in the past or something like that.
I feel like there's I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I feel like there's something like that exists. If I find that, I will post it in our SharePoint site, and you guys will have that.
This is making me think I should just buy everybody a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. Right? The political scientist in me is like, everybody should own this book.
You can Venmo all of us $15 if you want to, but okay.
No, I'll just send you the book. I'll just have Jared give me I can look up everybody's address, and I'll just send everybody a copy. And then we'll be the best advised committee for the city.
Well, I hope that we can we'll get through that, and we can be the best advised around smart city for sure. I mean, Kaylin, I really appreciate the question. I want to move on, but I don't want to move too quickly if there are open questions on this at all. Everybody okay? Do you have more questions? Okay, awesome. Jared, thank you for that. And if there is follow-up, look forward to see that. Our next agenda item, review Smart City Framework and recommendations. So Tiffany put on the agenda the presentation, the Coppell actually doesn't show up with this, but the Coppell Smart City Board, the brief review 2020, that was a part of the agenda. And what I wanted to just do real quick is I'm not going to go through this and read this to everybody, but I want to remind everybody, and Jared, I'm going to have you chime in with me as well on this. But one of the really basic items that we did as a board when we got together is we had to figure out, why are we here, right? The board was formed, we were asked, we applied, we got voted on, we were brought in. But there was some really, really good discussion in those early meetings of what is our purpose? I mean, we know what was out there on the website. Why are we together? What kind of our objectives need to be? What is some of those outputs that we want to do as a group? And we worked on a lot of that stuff, and that's where these 6 portfolios came from. And we actually defined a smart city definition. So it's a really, really great PDF to refer to, as we start thinking about that smart city definition and the portfolios. But I think that why we exist is really, really important, and then ultimately what our next steps are. So in that PDF, we made recommendations. Actually, thank you for sharing that. If you'll go to the next slide, we define the smart city definition. And we worked on that together and made that definition around what is a smart city, that we work as our framework. And then the next slide, and as a reminder, especially Kaylin and Aaron B., if you didn't see it, this was actually a presentation that we gave as we gave to City Council. And it basically was just outlining the work that we had done so far, the direction that we were going, and some early recommendations of what the board was thinking about. And all this, at the time went through Jared, and we actually had an assistant city manager also with Vicky. So we work on this collaboratively, and Jared as our city liaison, is that the best way to call it, Jared? So basically our city liaison. So we work as this 3-legged stool, the board, Jared as liaison, and then with council. And so these were the recommendations we came up with. And that was the technology, strategy for the challenges that we currently see, and most importantly, that we see through a lens of 2040. We talked about a citizens engagement platform to do a lot of collaboration. We talked about establishing an innovation hub. And then probably one of the, I don't know if it was the biggest, but one of the framework discussions that we had as a board to city council was to really move from just project management and start looking in as smart city in portfolios. And we came up with those 6 portfolios. And by having the portfolio management strategy, the city can get their arms wrapped around through Jared. It'll be Jared's job and his department's job to execute this with the rest of the city. But start looking at portfolio management, because if we look at it just through the eyes of one thing, you can get overwhelming really, really quick. And then underlying so much of this is privacy. And so it would be remiss for this board not to have discussions and make recommendations around what some type of data privacy protocols and commissions are going to be. And again, that's not our job to do that or police that. All of these are basically our recommendations of how we are seeing the world through the eyes of Vision 2040 to move forward. So, Jared, what would you add to that or correct of that, of what I just described?
Well, so first, for clarity, this is a even more condensed version than the presentation that went to council. But each one of these is a piece of the framework that you're going to see on the next slide. So if you basically, this is where they're all kind of listed out, but then in the visual, which is
next slide.
Julian, next slide, please. Yes. You'll see community engagement platform on the left, portfolios in the middle, innovation hub on the right, and then the data foundation across the bottom. All of these things kind of make up the framework that we have been discussing all along.
Yeah, so so a lot of the next steps for us, and we'll get into this in our next section on the agenda around discuss agenda in the April meeting, but the work, if you will, is around those 6 portfolios. And what we decided as a board at the end of last year is let's divvy up these 6 portfolios, and let's have basically 2 board members that are interested in these to do some research, go and dive in a little bit more, do some research, and then let's bring that back to us as a board, walk through that, determine if we need, if we all are in agreement with that, how's the framework of that work, do we think there needs to be more work done on that, and then move to the next one. And so we've been stuck, and it's not Aaron and Ramesh's, it's not your fault or anything, but our step was that number 2, actually, is that right? Yeah, number 2 around climate is Aaron and Ramesh. We're doing some additional research, putting some legs around it, and we're going to bring that back to the board for us to kind of chew on, think about, see if anything was additional, and then move to the next one. Is what we're going to do. And so the way is we line out the year, if we look between where we are today and then December, because Jared, in a big macro sense, at the end of this year, everyone on this board technically rolls off. We have to be reelected if we want to continue and join. I have that correct, Jared?
Yes.
So
I think Aaron B and
there's no election, that's appointment.
Aaron B and I thought it was 2 years.
So I'm almost positive, because you guys were filling open positions, you filled the term. In fact, specifically, I think that was the language that was at council. So technically, Kaylin, you filled Jeff's seat, and so you're fulfilling his term for the remainder. And same with Aaron. So in December, we would renew and reappoint based on council's selection.
Did we, remind me, Jared, did we have some people who were 1-year members?
So this is a discussion that I'm taking back based on everything right now. It says everybody's on 2-year terms, and so everybody would be eligible or up for appointment again. So basically everybody's up at the end of the year. So I'm struggling with that, because that's not the case in some of the other boards.
It is not the case with some of the other boards. That's fine. I'm more than willing to take that up with some city council members that I know.
Yeah. So just know, Patrick, that is on my radar, and I'm working to address that. As we started going through all of these questions related to Jeff's departure, that was one of the things that came up specifically, Kaylin, on when we were appointing you to a voting scenario. My question was, do you get the full 2 years, or are you fulfilling Jeff's role? The answer, and basically what went to council, was you're fulfilling that role, and then you'll finish the term. Now, to Patrick's point, it's not an election; it's an appointment by council, and so now this would be the first renewal of this board. So I'm assuming it will be a pretty straightforward process, just like the other boards, where if you want it, you put your application in again. They would identify you as you've already participated in this board. They go through the process of making a selection and then nominating the board members.
My term expires 2022.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I just looked up the roster, and it does say there's is Aaron B. and Kaylin is 2022, but I'll get confirmation from the city secretary just to double check.
Perfect. Please do, because the memo that supported that action, I believe.
So backing up on this, I mean, looking at this latest slide that's up, like this is a full year.
Correct.
To get through this. Is that, I mean, Todd, is that what are you thinking this is going to take us from now through December?
Yeah, I am. I mean, when you look at the amount of months, I mean, we've got 9 months in front of us, and we've got 6 portfolios to get through.
Right.
So, doing a little bit of math and how things work in life, that gives us 3 months of. It's not much play, but that's the goal. I mean, I think our goal as a board, and I mean, obviously we can have other goals, but I think our goal should be let's get through these 6 portfolios between now and the end of the year. And Jared, we've had some brief conversations thinking through, once we get those 6 to a point where we can kind of package them up, the goal would then be that the board, with your help and through you, would be making, really our recommendation package to city council based on those 6. So Patrick, I do think that's a good goal for us for this year. Definitely up for discussion and questions. But Jared, I mean, in my mind, that's how we should look at this year. But anybody question that or ask questions. But Jared, does that sync with you?
It does. What I will say is the pace and the number of recommendations you want to make, or the board wants to make to council. So let's say we get into the first portfolio and we spend a full meeting, and we don't really have a good recommendation coming out of that one meeting, and it carries to 2 and then maybe 3. If we get into that scenario, what I would focus on is getting a good recommendation for the portfolio. So you have a good recommendation to make to council related to that one, knowing that this board is going to continue on beyond December, and hopefully, I hope the terms are right, and then we'll have some folks that have been working on this will carry over, because that was my concern, is the having some consistency going forward. So that's what I would say. Don't get too hung up on trying to do it all. If we can, that's great. If we can't, we only get to 4 of the 6, and you have recommendations for 4 of the 6. That's good. And when we continue on into the next year with the remainder, I mean, that would be my only food for thought related to that concept.
I think that's a great way for us to think. I mean, again, there's a whole conversation to be talked about of, rolling terms and things like that, so we can guarantee continuity for longer. But that's something for you to discuss, with Mike and others. And, we obviously will give you our feedback on that. But I do agree with you. I don't think we should rush to get 6 done just because there's 6 on the board. I think if we got 1 done and that was the work the board felt we should do, then that would, leave to-dos moving forward. So
and
what are other questions or thoughts? Go ahead, Caitlin.
before this year, had you guys discussed trying, like, start to finish the whole process for one portfolio just to see how, I mean, because it seemed like that's what we were kind of doing the first meeting I joined, kind of like a little trial run to see what it looked like, because it seems like 9 months doesn't seem like that many months to me. And, but I don't know, I haven't seen it. What does it look like when we come up with our recommendations? How long does it take to turn that into something we'd give the board? Like, what if we learned that takes 6 months, but we don't learn it until the board's thinking, you know, that we're going to have something? I don't know. I would feel comfortable completing one and seeing what that feels like and how long that takes.
That's really where we're at, because we're building this plane while we're flying it, right? And so we are kind of making this up as we go, and that was the point. Was let's start with one, and Aaron Ramesh, gladly said they'll help us learn through this with the first one, and so we were going to start with that and really see kind of where it got us, because we're first time free to come together.
So Todd, I have to ask you, having been to where the Wright brothers flew their first plane, has anybody else been there? As you made that analogy of we're trying to fly this thing at the same time we're building it.
I have not, no.
I have. And let me tell you, you can almost throw a baseball the distance the Wright brothers flew their first plane.
Well, I think this board, I'm pretty proud of what this board did in that first
year.
No,
and I totally agree. I totally agree with what we're doing. I mean, but I also get Kaylin's thing of, as I look at this agenda and I go, okay, there's some of these I'm willing to touch and be part of. There's other ones I honestly think we may want to punt on. Like, I don't know that we want to do all 6.
Okay.
Ramesh, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand what Patrick is trying to say there. Now, if the point is we take as much time as we need to work on the first initiative we pick, I completely agree with that. But if
yes, just thumbs up on that.
Yeah, if you're saying, let's say there's a number 7 here, and we are saying we'll not do number 7, then I'll like to have a little more discussion on that, because I like to understand why we are not doing that 7.
Yeah, and Todd, well, Jeff took the initiative and launched the first presentation, which pertained to Pillar 2. And as I was looking to do the same with some tweaking, one of the questions in my mind that kept coming up is what does the board want from me? What does the board want to hear about? And so I think at minimum staggering the conversation. So say we get through 2 or 3 portfolio 2, and then the next month is portfolio 3, making sure we carve out 20 minutes or 30 minutes on the agenda in this month to talk about and start generating a momentum or a direction for the next month. That way we're not flying blind as to what is it that the board wants to hear about our portfolio, and just making sure we're not generating the research on an island, but trying to pull in deeper data from interests or comments of the team.
So let's frame that up just a little bit. And it's all Ramesh and Patrick and Aaron and Kaylin, you started this, which is fantastic. If we frame this up, and Jared, I'm going to come to you as liaison. It sounds like one way we could go, and let's just take Pillar 2 with Ramesh and Aaron, is ultimately the outcome we would like to have is that for Pillar 2, this board would like to make a recommendation to City Council based on looking at 2040, Vision 2040, looking farther out down the road, that's less than 20 years now, which is crazy. But through those eyes, that we want to make a recommendation to the city. And Jared, from your standpoint, with that, do you see that just being another PowerPoint presentation with here was some research that was done, here's what here were some of the discussion points and the challenges the board had with this, here's some other things that we learned, and based on that, we believe the city should be thinking and possibly do X. Is that the outcome you see from this board, Jared?
Yeah. The way that you guys were working towards where it was like an actionable statement, the city shall be prepared for X or have a reduction by X on whatever topic we're trying to achieve. So yes, from the logistics of it, it would be a presentation to council. It would likely be in the form of some PDF slide deck. And what we're doing would be taking each one of these. I would start obviously with a refresher of what this framework looks like because they haven't seen it since however long ago it was. Then you would look at each one and say, here, the board after deliberation and kind of things, here's where we think Coppell fits into this, or how we see Coppell in this portfolio, and therefore this is the recommendation we have, which is, perhaps a statement or a suggestion or whatever that recommendation is the group decides it to be. You're sharing that with council with the notion that council is going to say, one, not in that presentation, but they're going to take that for deliberation. Ultimately, what would happen with that recommendation is it would become part of a work plan for me to do going forward. That's kind of how the overall, that's the bigger, broader picture of what this work amounts to. And I think that's where it even says helping with formulation of notion of budget. So if there's an item, for example, that or a recommendation that's made, I like the community engagement platform. So if there is a platform that needs to be procured from a city perspective, you're making a recommendation that says, yeah, we think that's a great idea. You should pursue that. And that's up to me to go find out how much that would cost and start putting an RFP together around it, all those types of things. So am I making it cloudier or are you guys good with what I'm saying? Hard to see. We went to small faces, so I'm struggling to.
So Jared, to emphasize what Aaron Anderson was saying, so in terms of if Aaron and I were to take on the climate action and deliver something for next meeting, what I'm hearing is that we look at the 2040 vision, look at all the recommendations made that apply to this and say we agree that these should be done or should not be done. In addition to that, are you expecting us to look at any other sources, like what other cities are doing, and then pick from those? Do you want us to include that as well?
Certainly, yeah. It's very common to have the research of what's being done in other cities and all parts of the world.
Yeah, and
tell everybody in town they're not allowed to buy palm trees anymore.
Right.
I don't know about.
I haven't seen a palm tree that I think is going to survive.
I don't know about Aaron Anderson, but one of the things that I panicked a little bit is I was worried if whatever I put together might be too little and not enough research. So that caused me a little bit of a concern, and then I ended up not doing anything. Sorry.
Yeah. It's fair. So that's a point that I think I'll try to hammer out for you guys. How much is too much? How much is too little? Is when I look at these topics, climate change, for example, that is a very broad topic and has lots of tenets into lots of things. And so that's where I feel like, so when I said it may take you more than one go at climate change portfolio. And to Kaylin's point, this may take us 6 months to drill out where we feel like we've got a good recommendation that fits Coppell in this, our 14 square miles here, how our footprint will impact that broader topic, and what can Coppell do to impact that, right? So to me, that's where the research that you do potentially would be related to any one of these topics. That you have to boil down back to Coppell, and then how you feel that research impacts Coppell, that you can make a recommendation for Coppell with the lens of 2040. And I think that's on the next slide, Julian. That kind of keeps pounding that out. But
Jared, that was kind of my point was, Jeff took a leap and he was first out of the gate, but then he got pushed back, and part of it was for me. But in tweaking the focus, so he put all that work into his presentation, but he went a little bit further out into one direction than the board wants to focus on. So my point is, before Ramesh or I go over here or somebody else goes over there, having a sequence to refine our direction as a team, so that we don't show up with a 40 hours worth of thought processes that misses the mark.
One thing that I've seen, Aaron, to your point, and again, as we build this plane, while we attempt to fly it, one thing that I would recommend, just from work I've done in the past, is, as you're doing some research, as you're thinking about a framework, as you're asking, you and Ramesh asking yourself questions, is you could easily, jump on a phone call with Jared. Or me, it'd be the three of us, and go, hey, this kind of framework I'm thinking, is this what we think we ought to bring to the board? And that would just be like, I think so. Let's bring that to the board, and let's all work through this, because, we may have, Aaron B., Kaylin, anybody else may have, a thought process to go, hey, this is the first time we've done this. Boy, we really missed this whole other thing. And I think that's the experience of the board that could then kind of help shape where we're going. That's previous slide. Again, that is a 6-figure plus consulting project for an outside firm to dive into, for sure. And so I think we start with, it could be 7. I get it. But Aaron, you're not on the island, or Ramesh, you're not on the island. So as we kind of come up with this template of like coming back to facilitate the conversation, I'll be there to help. Jared will be there to help. And again, we're not going to get it perfect out of the gate. I think it's Ramesh, to your point. We're not going to get it perfect. So there's really I guess there is a wrong way to do it, but I don't think there really, is going to be a wrong way to kind of think through it for us. So Ramesh and Aaron, is that squishy enough, with enough direction, for that portfolio too, to, think through, maybe some of those sub bullet points, like what other cities are doing, what are we kind of currently doing, here's how it applies to Vision 2040. Here's some things I know we're going to need to do a lot more work on. We can maybe bring that back to the board to see if there's others. I think that might be a good thing to be on the agenda, to come back and we devote, quite a bit of time to go through that. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think it's clearer to me now.
And was it you, Aaron A., who said to have room on the agenda in one to kind of prep and get the momentum going? Because if I think about, if I was preparing for a work meeting, I don't want to go into the meeting without knowing some ideas about what questions. I know you're talking about the board, but even just for our group, like you said, Jeff presented and we kind of were like, but I don't know if you guys presented Jeff with 5 questions. Hey, Jeff, it'd be really cool if you answered these 5 questions. And then whatever else you find that you think is interesting, or maybe 3 questions. But I think it would be helpful when it's my turn to do it, if we had even a 5 to 10 minute brainstorm session the month before my turn, where we kind of talked out loud about questions we had about that topic to at least kind of a starting place. And like you said, to start the momentum where we're kind of coming at it from as not the same place, but at least the same context.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Because Jeff and I talked about it. He admitted he got so excited about the direction that he was headed that he just kept digging and digging and getting more and more deeper into the research. And so as I was thinking I'd be speaking at some point on the topic, sitting in my house with no power, I had to stop myself from making it into a disaster recovery presentation about how we need to distribute Tesla batteries to all residents upon, moving to the city. So having a list of some areas from the rest of the team that we want to see information about would be extremely helpful, just to make sure that, for me personally, I kind of stick to the agenda and then add my own little flair.
Yeah, so Kaylin, one of the things I heard you say is like, let's look forward to an April or May or June. If we say that next meeting is going to be focused on Portfolio 2, we'll have a section in the meeting that we discuss agenda items for May, right? So we know we're going to do that. A part of that discussion will be, does anybody think we're ready to go to Portfolio 3, right? And I think we'll all go, I kind of feel like it, and there's two people that are interested, and they say, let me get started. Or it could go a completely different direction. We're like, oh my gosh, we've been off more we chew with this one, so let's stay focused on this one for all of next meeting. Like I can see it going in any different direction like that as we start talking through that. That's pretty much my style, is to, kind of say, where are we trying to get? What's our goal? Can we get there? And then, Jared needs to agree with all of us or not. And then once we kind of know where we're all headed, and then let's come up with a collaborative way to process that to get there. I naturally I'm an activator, from the Strength Finder standpoint, so I just want to activate and get stuff done. So I naturally look at 6 and go, all right, let's get all 6 done by the end of the year. But I also realized from a maximizer standpoint of how to get the most out of the whole thing is we're going to bite off chunks. To your point, Kaylin, we may only get 1 done. And that may be a huge success for this group. So Aaron, I think we're basically all kind of saying the same thing, and like having a little bit of guardrails, knowing that we want to stay focused on one, bring back for those discussion points and challenges and thought processes of, wow, we actually kind of missed these other 4 things. So, Aaron, Ramesh, could you focus on those things when you come back next meeting? That'll just be the guidance the board could give you guys.
Let me offer another priority. Sorry, again, teaching political science at a university, which one do we need to get in the budget cycle for? And so I'd raise this with Jared and with Tiffany, which is across these things we're doing and the discussion we're having, which ones need to get into the budget cycle? Because the city council budget cycle is going to start kicking off in the next 3 months.
Within October, right?
Well, no, they vote on the final budget in October.
Right.
But there's a lot of back and forth over that budget cycle that happens before that, and so
yeah, that was my point. There's a lot that happens before that October voting.
Right.
To your point.
And so I'm sitting here going, okay, is there anything we're proposing to do here as a smart city board that's going to require the city to spend money? And again, we still have another agenda item about water meters and the rest of the discussion around that to be had. But if anything that's coming out of these pillars needs to be funded in the next year, we need to get out in front of whichever this. So
let's pose that to Jared real quick, because it's a really good point, Patrick. And let's pose that to Jared.
Yeah.
Jared, do you believe does that need to be one of our filters? Do we need to prioritize based on what you may think of those 6 you would like for us to work on? Because ultimately you're going to have budget, possibly. So should that be one of our filters?
And the answer is yes. It could be. It definitely needs to be a filter. If there is something that we, or the board, I should say, decides that we need to do, or you think that I need to go forward with a project to do and expend funds on XYZ, I need to know kind of the direction, and then I'll seek out the cost, and then provide that input into my budget process. To date, my understanding of what we were going to come out of the portfolios with weren't necessarily specifically budget related suggestions. It was more, I forget Jeff always was very good at articulating that the way that is phrased, but
so far they are revenue neutral is the phrase, the fancy phrase we use.
Very, very good, Patrick. Revenue neutral. Everything that was coming out of this so far has been revenue neutral. The only thing that I would say is, Julian, if you'll back up one, if there's something, outside of, so I feel like that's what we landed with the portfolios. We were going to have some transitional statements that would be something that they're actionable for with the focus on the goal of 2040. If there is something that we need that the city needs to do to provide the board to help answer that would be something we would want to consider. Does that make sense? So if we needed to hire a consultant, let's say to do X, Y, or Z related to connected homes and smart buildings, because you wanted more information specifically around a topic, that would be something you could make a recommendation for. And then I would take that forward I would pursue that consultant cost in my budget. Then obviously we'd go out to bid for it and all that sort of fun stuff. If there was anything like that, I would say keep that in mind as a filter. But to Patrick's point, everything so far has been, neutral in the sense of it really isn't a cost. It's doing some homework. It's coming back with some thought processes. It's discussing with the board. And making a recommendation that is kind of higher, broader in topic, in the sense of it's a direction for me as a technologist at the city to leverage as we go forward.
So one way that we could do this, I'll just throw this out, Patrick, to your point, and for us as a board to think through. One suggestion that we could do is let's have Ramesh and Aaron, work towards coming back with those steps around research of what around portfolio 2. I mean, that could be an agenda item for April. Another piece of homework that could be a part of that agenda item could be we could ask Jared as a board to put his thinking cap on of saying based on where we are right now and what he has in his pipeline and what, just ultimately, what's happening bigger picture across the city. I mean, Jared, you could come back to us and as a part of April and say, you've done some due diligence, you've talked with Mike, yada, 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 whatever that needs to be. And if we were going to prioritize after we do climate, we really should potentially tackle X, based on your
No, I totally agree with that. Cause I look at 3, 4, 5, and 6 and honestly, I don't care what order we do them in. So I agree with you, Todd, like getting city council or city manager to say, what priority do you want us to do the other pillars in, I think makes a lot of sense.
Because Jared's going to be driving that. I mean, as you're heading the department, based on overall city. So that, I mean, I might just throw that out to this board and say, should that be our good direction? Let's continue with 2 because Aaron and Ramesh, you've got some thought process already. We can continue on that road, come back, and let's start that process. Caitlin, to your point, that let's see how that goes and what are we going to have to add, change, or help them with. And then Aaron, I'm sorry, and then Jared, you come back after doing some internal and provide us with maybe direction of the next one, or in conjunction what we should be doing, based on, true concern, not concerns, but true prioritization for the city.
Just to clarify, we're going to continue on with climate change being the next topic. And then based on, you want me to provide some feedback into what, from my perspective, the next ones.
What prioritization
what I'm working on?
Wait a minute. I want the feedback from council and the manager.
Okay. All right. That's the clarity I was trying to get to, Patrick. So, because I can tell you what the city is working on already in motion. The next one that would be very easy to talk about and discuss would be number 3, based on some of the things that we've got in play. It's really more traffic related. I've offered up Kent to come speak to us. So from my perspective, those are projects that are underway that might be of interest to this group that would help with that discussion to help go forward with like a recommendation. So that's not council. So that's the clarity that Patrick's asking. So if you're looking from my perspective, that's one that I would throw out. If you're looking to put this back in front of council and say, we're working on this, which one of these portfolios do you feel is the most important, or how would you prioritize these? I can absolutely do that in a work session, if that's what we feel like we need to do.
At this point, I will defer to the chair. I will say, in terms of my own personal preferences, I care the least about number 3.
Okay. Ramesh, go ahead. You were about to say something.
So back to the climate action. I have a question for Jared Anderson and maybe Tiffany Light. Can you point to me a document, or maybe you have it in your records, the list of things that you are already working on? So that way, Aaron Anderson and I don't spend too much time on it if it's already above your budget line, and as well as things that you think should be done beyond 2030. So our purpose is to focus on things 2030 and beyond, right?
No, your focus is 2040 and beyond. We're beyond 2030 at this point in Coppell.
All right. So anything that you already have, please feel free to share with us. And then I think some of what you have may already be in the Vision 2040, but it'll help us, I think.
For sure. There's existing policies that are related to this topic that you probably may not know, but that are in play today in the organization. So yeah, I'll find you some, for example, fleet policy for idling. We have a zero idling policy. We transitioned the fleet away from 100% gasoline to partially gasoline, partially alternative fuels. So that's all. We've reduced the fleet in general, but all that's kind of there. That's an easy one to pick at that does impact climate from exhaust and those types of things.
So to Ramesh's request, which is a great one, by the way, is the way. Now I want to get to operations real quick because we got stuck on this sometimes. Would the way for you to share that, would you find that information? Would you basically load those documents into SharePoint, and then we'd all get a notification that they were there? We all could go read them and take a look at them and be prepared for our next meeting, but that'll serve what Ramesh and Aaron are using, or maybe have additional questions for you. Is that how we would work through it?
Certainly. Yeah, that's how I envisioned it. I would most likely, if we haven't already, I'd have a folder that would be out there in SharePoint related to this topic, and then I would just upload that information, those policies, and either links to them or the PDFs themselves.
Okay.
Another quick shameless request. I know Aaron Anderson and I are going to be working on it, But if each of you, if you have strong opinions or you have resources or reading material that will apply to this, please feel free to post it on the shared folder. So that way, Aaron, Anderson, and I can look at it. So you'll be helping us.
Yeah, or reach out to one of us individually.
And regarding your point, Patrick, about prioritization, especially as it relates to budget, the two on the left, like it feels like we spent quite a bit of time talking about a community engagement. And I mean, that seems like something where we might have a, some sort of suggestion that could cost money. In our idea about moving forward with the portfolios, where do discussions on those two, what I see as like potentially software expenditures, like when are we planning to debate that or investigate that and try to come up with some recommendations?
Yeah, really good point. In fact, I would say, somebody correct me if you're wrong, I don't think we've really actually spent that much time on it. It's all been around the portfolios. Jared, I would look to you and I mean, because I could go nuts and crazy over both Innovation Hub and Engagement Platform. Like, that just really interests me. But then I would say, are you already working on that to get that done in the next 36 months? Which would be a lot shorter than what we would want to spend time on. So I'd come to you on that. But, I mean, Kaylin, it's an absolutely fabulous question.
Well, to that point, I mean, we could leave the portfolios alone and just focus on these others, and then leave that for the future boards if you wanted to. In the short, I would, the community engagement platform, there's been lots of conversation around community engagement, and there's lots of things that we are doing. Is there a specific platform that we are researching and looking to select? The answer is no. I have not put anything in for a capital investment related to any additional software related to that topic. There is interest in that, and we'd like to make a recommendation related to that. What I would say that we would want to focus on would be kind of start to identify what we think that would look like. Kind of starting to put some legs around it. So I would have some specs to go forward with to try to start to research the players.
So one of the things I do want to bring up is, one of the things that we're not tasked to do is to write a statement of work for you to go get in the next 12 months. Like, that's right. Not our role. One of the things that we could do, thinking through a statement of work framework, could be, what do we believe is going to be necessary by 2040 that Jared and the city need to be thinking about right now in order to get there? Because that's a big distinction we do want to make sure that we keep in mind.
Yep.
So honestly, I mean, I look at this board, I look at where we are right now. I look at all the work that we've done to get us to this point. I really do think, we're at this reset time, kind of where this meeting is. And I think we as a board, we should make a decision. I think it would be smart for us to potentially make a decision in this meeting of, do we continue with 2, but then who's interested in maybe community engagement? Should we wait on that until Jared comes back and presents to us next meeting? Because we're having great discussion here, but I do want to be a little bit of a activator and continue to move forward to get some work done. Aaron B., you've been, I'm really interested in your input, and I'm going to ask you a really dumb question. Will you pronounce your last name again for us?
You can say it anyway, and I'll answer. So I say Bogdanovich, Bogdanovich, however you want to say it.
So it's Bogdanovich?
Bogdanovich. This is very easy to do.
There you go. Yes.
Sorry. Is the kid who grew up outside of Youngstown, Ohio, with a bunch of Polish and other ethnic immigrants? Bogdanovich is an easy name to pronounce.
Exactly. What's the problem, Todd? So you
Yeah.
Well, there's no problem. I'm asking for everybody else that's afraid to
No,
ask.
yeah. It's
And I'm going to
Bogdanovich.
screw it up.
I say Bogdanovich. It's really whatever. I'll answer. Aaron Brockovich. Fine.
You get stuck in our head for sure.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
No,
overall?
I agree that I think, well, all of these are great theories as far as 1 through 6, but as far as practicality, what are we wanting to implement, I feel like? And I think that's a good question for Jared as far as the city council goes. And what specific things are we wanting to do with these broad topics? And I think that will help us kind of narrow down what we're spending time on, because I don't want us to spend a bunch of time researching stuff that is never going to be implemented or used or necessary. So, for instance, are there devices that they're trying to monitor congestion with and traffic, and how can we do research to implement that? I know that they had talked about doing some kind of an app and connecting citizens that way to the city and what their needs are and services. So let's look into that. So I love the theory of everything, but I really am more of a, let's cut to the chase and what are we going to do with all this information, and let's focus on that so we can make some progress. So that's my thought.
Let me offer one, which is, our kid got hit from behind on his car at the corner of Denton Tap and Sandy Lake. He was on Denton Tap, about to turn left on the Sandy Lake. So everybody knows the intersection. He got hit from behind. The person drove off. And Jared can answer this, which is, there's a set of camera monitoring systems there that were able to record what car hit our kid's car. And so that level of camera technology basically saved us an insurance claim. So you wonder, well, what do you invest in the level of technology and the cameras and the rest of your community? That was one that probably saved us $2,000 to $3,000 in a broken bumper and the rest of it. I mean, the car didn't suffer that much damage, but it needed a new bumper and it needed a paint job. So I mean, we've invested some of this stuff already in the community in terms of doing these things. It's just when I go back and I look at this list of the 6 pillars of what's in front of us now, I'm wondering what order we want them in. So we've done the first one, we've done the second, but for 3, 4, 5, and 6, do we want to change the order of the discussion over this?
Well, I think we can frame that, Patrick, up. My suggestion would be frame that up based on feedback we get from Jared, based on prioritization. And I think there's a lot of examples that we have, and I do want to, just for the sake of time, to make sure we stay productive and not be on here for 4 hours.
And we still have another agenda item, if I remember correctly.
What you described, and I know we all have personal examples, would be somewhere probably in 4 around automated city services. And how would we take an example like that, look through the lens of 2040, based on a prioritization of what the city needs to get accomplished, and then what would we dive in to talk through that?
No,
totally. And I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel either. There's lots of cities that are doing way more smart city stuff than we are. So if we took, whoever's going next and just did some research on what are other cities doing, then put that into one of these pillars or whatever. I'm just more practical. I'm just what do we need and how are we going to get it done? So, and the cameras that are at Sandy Lake and Denton Tap have been there since at least the 90s, because I know I've gotten a red light ticket probably back since then.
Aaron, they have taken those red light cameras out, because I got a ticket on one of those red light cameras.
But, I got a ticket on it before it was taken out. So, I'm in high school. What do you want from me, people?
Let me ask you a question.
I blew through in my sports car.
So let me ask a question to the group real quick. Do we agree? Should we have Aaron and Ramesh continue along number 2? to have them continue along number 2. So that would be an agenda item. Once we get to that section, that potentially could be one, and Jared would come back with and help us do prioritization. I do want us to help Aaron and Ramesh resolve, are we going to continue with that process? I personally think that we should, because I think there's going to be good learnings. Aaron, to your point on practicality, let's learn, and we could do some research. What are top 10 cities doing? Let's learn about that. How's that going to mesh up against what, Jared knows practical we get done between now and 2040. Yeah, I think there could be some really good learnings we as a group can, by continuing down 2. So I would propose that we continue to do that. Would be my thought. Does anybody disagree with that?
I think we could continue to do that plan, but with the thought of let's look at what other smart cities are doing within this particular topic, and then give us some information on that. Like climate action. I mean, that's super broad. That could mean tons of things that have nothing to do with us. And I don't want them out there researching stuff that is not going to be beneficial for us.
Yeah,
Aaron,
I think we're saying the same thing. Go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
Aaron, that's exactly. I've been making notes as an example framework that we can use. So we definitely will be looking at least to the extent the amount of hours that we can spend on this. We'll be looking at that. But I had my hand up for a different reason. So Kaylin and Aaron Bogdanovich, I know when you guys joined, we may not have talked about this. But as board members, our primary role is going to be more as a futurist and a dreamer of the vision of the future. So we have to imagine what the vision future would be in 2040 and beyond, and not worry as much about how we deploy or implement that. And that is Jared Anderson's problem. We just dream what is going to be important, and then he has to worry about how he implements it. So I think we need to have our futurist hat on much more than implementing, because I was making the mistake of always trying to think about how do we implement it, and I got my hand slapped several times.
Right. So I appreciate that, Ramesh, because that is something I do want to, you guys to remember. Really, there are a lot of things that are happening today that'll be obsolete in 2040, obviously. So looking at it, now policies typically are something that, related to climate are something good to look at various cities. So, but potentially the technology that for manufacturing will change a million times before we get to 2040. So having certain types of, policies or resolutions that would potentially prohibit or change the way we do something today, or changed our master plan going into the future may not necessarily be the best action to take, is what I'm trying to get at. So focusing on the future, 2040, and then really those high level dreams are what I'm going to try to build a backbone to support, because that's ultimately the 2040 pillar that we're playing in, is the backbone for smart city. It's in pillar 7 of the 2040. It's one of the hot topics that is a priority of council, and it is on my things to do. So I have goals specifically current year and the next 5 years related to those activities. But it's really what we're trying to accomplish here is really to help me and help you guys get to a place where we can recommend council, so they can ultimately make the decision on what staff needs to do related to these topics. So
Jared, just to touch on that, are we supposed to be coming up with things and ideas for, the next 5 years in addition to 2040? Or because, for instance, like some of the stuff like the app or whatever, that's technology we have now, but we don't have that in Coppell. So are we supposed to be focusing on that kind of stuff too, or just like, I want a robot to drive my car type of situation?
Yeah, robot to drive your car type situation. Jetsons, that's where we're at. We're out there.
Yes, Jetsons. I love the Jetsons.
Yes. But we're going to have those automated cars in the next 18 months. So
right. So that's the problem. Is technology's moving, but I would argue that technology is moving that fast that these are important. And But again, we're trying to, as an advisory board, we're trying to advise council, hey, they see it as very simply, we need a backbone to support smart technology. What is that? What does that mean? So they look to this board to kind of help them define that. We've picked 2040 as the 2040 vision, the big bold vision of 2040. What does that look like? And then what are the things related to smart city that the city of Coppell can be doing or working towards today to get to what this board sees as what the future will be, if that makes sense.
That's came up with this slide.
Right. Yes.
And that's how we came up with basically to get to this slide. And Aaron being a fantastic point.
Aaron, I refuse to drive the robot car.
Patrick, I do too, but I agree with you on so many things. So that's not surprising.
As a Tesla owner, I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
so.
Todd, you could take your Tesla and go plug it in.
And I have, and I will, and you can.
And the rest of us will go put gasoline in our cars.
How did you even drive this past week? I would have been in trouble.
So moving on. So I have 3 bullet points that I'm thinking about, Aaron.
And I think we still have another agenda item to get through.
We do. So help me get there. So I see 3 potential kind of bullet points, and Ramesh and Aaron, you'll have some ways to make this better, but I think a framework to come back for portfolio 2, one bullet point is going to be outstanding or current city examples of addressing kind of 20 years forward. So like, what are those city examples that already are in, what's Toronto doing? What's Seattle doing? Whatever those cities are, what are those city examples that we need to be aware of as a board? Maybe one, point. The second is, and maybe it's a subsection of that, but basically of those cities examples, are they really looking to 2040 or are they kind of addressing the next couple of years? Because the stuff that addresses the next couple of years, we don't necessarily want to get into, procurement. We're really looking to those trends of what the cities are doing out there. And then we put it through the filter of our own 2040 and how do we look at our actually 2040 document and tie it back to that. I think if that was the start of a framework that could help us, think through, climate change. And then obviously maybe another bullet point is going to be, what's existing policy that's going to frame this up at all? That Jared can help us with. So that's kind of where my head goes, following Aaron B's thought of like, how do we activate and get stuff moving? That's kind of what I'm thinking. It could be a good idea. Does that make sense, Aaron, Ramesh?
Yep. Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay. By the way, this was fantastic conversation. This was really, really good. I really do appreciate it. I don't remember your hand getting slapped, Ramesh, but I know we all kind of went, wait, stop. We're talking about procurement. We're not a procurement board. Jared would not want us dictating his procurement. That would be crazy. Okay. I think we should move on. And thank you for doing that, Patrick. So, for the agenda,
I'm trying to find you've got one more agenda item, I know.
So discussing the agenda for April meeting. I think all of this discussion.
No, actually, you have another one. Hold on, I gotta look.
Yeah, we're gonna get to discuss those on number 8. We'll get to that. And that'll be Jared's session.
There's 7 discuss April, and then 8 is the smart meter.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
So back to discuss agenda for April meeting. So I think we've landed on 2 points. One will be a presentation from Aaron and Ramesh based on a loose framework based on portfolio number 2. I think that'll be one. I think the second, another agenda item, Jared, will be, a short discussion, a presentation, however you think is going to be best to communicate with us around some type of prioritization based on work that you're doing, work that the city council is needing that could help us think through prioritization on some of these the framework that we have around our policies and foundation. I think that's a second agenda point. And I think a third agenda point would be we might want to make a decision. Do we want to, based on that, and we probably would wrap it up in the discuss of May agenda meeting is, do we want to pick off another one? Is there a couple people that would like to maybe start off on another one, or do we stay focused on number 2? So I think I think that would be kind of fall under the May meeting discussion. Is how that would fall. Anybody have any other thoughts? I mean, is there a guest that maybe needs to come back, Jared? I mean, you can make that decision based on what your prioritizations look like, but I think that's a good place to start. That's a lot to bite off. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah. I think it's a good start.
Yep.
Okay. So Jared, let's set a time that we want to finish. It's a couple of minutes before 8 now. And we need to want to hear about your smart meter leak detection. So is this a 10-minute segment? What's your suggestion here?
I can get it. It can be 5 minutes with questions 10. It's a high level. I just wanted to, if you're ready for me to roll, I'll just roll.
Yeah, please.
So smart meter leak detection. So 2 years ago, the city replaced all the meters in the city with smart meters. So high level, what that looks like is you have a meter at every household and commercial that it has a radio on it, and that radio submits a signal up to 3 collectors throughout the city. There's big towers. 2 are water towers, existing water towers, and then the third tower is over by fire station, I believe that's 2 off of MacArthur. So what it does is then it routes those readings and takes readings every 5 minutes. And it sends those consumption readings up to the cloud. The cloud, then we pull basically your consumption one time per month, which then connects to the billing system, which you then get your bill. The cool part about that technology is all that data is up in the cloud, and we're able to leverage it to run analytics and reports, one of which being a leak detection report, which is what we used to respond to last week during the big snow event. And so what was really cool about it was cloud solutions. So, anybody who had internet access with the credentials could access that, pull the report down, and we could actually start to reach out to citizens to say, hey, basically what it is saying you don't have a period of zero consumption, which means your water is constantly running. So typically on a typical meter in a house, you will have a zero consumption for several hours, typically at night when you're sleeping. There's nothing running. There shouldn't be, unless you're running irrigation in the summertime, it should have a zero consumption. So if we run a report and we see that there is not zero consumption at any meter, that typically indicates that there is a leak. And so we responded to 1,200 to 1,300 water shutoff calls. It's probably higher than that. Thank you, Patrick. I can tell you it's the most crews that we've ever had doing water shutoffs in the city. We had over 11 crews, including fire department, police department, and public works going around, and of course, utility billing, doing water shutoffs at folks that had leaks. And I can tell you there were some properties that had substantial damage throughout the city. But this is just one of those use cases. The original solution for smart meters wasn't necessarily for the leak detection, but it is absolutely a benefit of moving to that solution. And so it is absolutely falls under the category of a smart city solution. And the way we procured that process, the meters was also considered one of the more innovative ways to do it through performance contracting. And that's from a high level. Basically, we used the savings to fund the debt of the system. So with that was 3 minutes. So if you have questions, I just think it's a really cool thing. It's something that's there. And these are the types of solutions that we need to be thinking about in 2040 that would potentially get us in a place where we're ready to have that in there then.
We already have checked our meter to make sure it wasn't reading over normal and have found that we have no leaks in our house. Now, granted, I will say you have 2 Yankees living in this house. So we went ahead and dripped all the faucets because These houses aren't built to run at -2 Fahrenheit. But, you know, having that sort of solution is a really great thing to have. And I had already heard about the city having to shut off all those meters and the rest of it even before you told me.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I can say is that we were reaching out to as many people as we could as we ran those reports every day of the week to let them know, and some of them knew and had plumbers en route, some of them didn't. You know, commercial businesses that were unoccupied were notified. We were shutting them off because there were sprinkler systems that ruptured. And in fact, there was a dentist office that had water that was roughly 3 feet deep inside the office. Terrible. Anyway, so lots of really, so again, that system was installed for a lot of reasons, but this is just one of the benefits. Another benefit, you know, just really that we like to push in the summertime is the conservative piece. You can set alerts, and Todd has posted the sign up in the chat. So if you haven't signed up, please sign up. But you can set alerts on your water consumption. So if you're hitting a threshold that you're concerned about, you can set it and it'll do alerts. You can actually run that leak detection or zero consumption report on your own. Helpful to set that and run a report. For example, if you're traveling abroad and all of a sudden you see that your water is running at an unbelievable rate and you're not there, there's a problem. So you can reach out to the city and we'll shut the water off for you. There's all those types of things that are available in that portal. A lot of analytics coming out of that we're using to, in fact, one of my employees is working with the school district to help students work with that data to help with education. So specifically water consumption or conservation education. So anyway.
I remember, Jared, when the city a couple, 3-4 months ago, might have been longer, but there was a marketing push around the portal to get people to register, because you're not automatically registered. You got to go and set up an account and do that.
Right.
And so if we haven't done it, do that, because I was running reports, and actually I was changing my alerts based on the freeze, because I all of a sudden got to see how much is the dripping that I'm doing in my house, like how many gallons is that actually consuming over the course of 24 hours? You know, so I started looking at what kind of alerts I should set up. So it's pretty good.
Todd, the city used as much water this past month as they normally would use in August.
Yeah, I saw that. It's crazy, but
yeah,
data is really powerful, and I even think that as board members, we can be advocates to have other people, sign up.
Yeah,
for sure, it's a really smart thing to do. All right, any questions, Michelle? Did you have a question?
I happen to come from metering industry, so I have a few questions. So you don't have a smart switch on those meters where you can remotely shut those off, right?
The actual water line shut off?
Right, it's a hard switch, but no relay, nothing. Okay.
No.
And are we doing anything on that? Or are we adding some sort of smart hydrant to shut off the water line at the hydrant level when you have a runway situation? Are we looking into that?
Automated valves is what you're just
right. So I mean, it's very expensive because the battery power is very expensive on this meter, right? So one solution I worked on back in about 4 years ago, the LA Water Department, they had a lot of this runaway situation, right? So they purchased hydrant, and we put a cap with a lot of smart switches, right? So we had this battery, it runs out every 2 years, but that's fine because you're adding, maybe for every 20 or not 20, every 200 meters, I forget the number, you have one hydrant. So it makes sense, right? So when they have this kind of runway situation, they just remotely shut those off until it takes, 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to get a crew there to figure out which house, and then, turn that hydrant on, and then everybody's happy at that point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you kind of answered the question for me in the sense that we did investigate it. The cost is prohibitive today for the bang on the buck. It is way less expensive to run that a reduced crew basically for utility billing. We used to have, I think we were up to 3 and a part-time water meter reader, so 4 positions that would go out and actually read meters and do shutoffs. We've reduced that outside person to a single person and then moved those folks and the other folks into customer service roles. So they do higher value stuff. They were the ones running the leak detection tests and things like or reports during the event. It's still the issue there really. We were looking at it from the individual meter perspective. When you get a little bit higher up, you're talking about a much greater level valve. And a much greater cost to have it automated. But to your point, they do exist, and when they cost becomes more effective, then because the ongoing cost there is the battery life.
Right.
The meter battery or the battery life in the meters that we installed is a 20-year battery, which is pretty substantial.
And that's utility standard for 20 years.
Right, exactly. But 10 years ago, it wasn't. It was 5. So. So it was, it's gotten better and better, and it will continue to get better. And the upside is it's very adaptable. So we can absolutely start to add these things later as we go forward. So I can tell you that Kent is, he's very interested in improving our water system in general. And
will you explain to everybody who Kent is, Jared? Just real quick.
Sorry. Kent Collins, he's the director of Public Works. He's responsible for all things Public Works. So Public Works actually has engineering services, which is where you see development plans get run through and all that sort of fun stuff. He also is responsible for the crews down at the service center that do all the public works, the water sewer repair, water main breaks. They're the ones responding. So they have traffic control. So I talk about traffic with Kent as well. So he's very familiar with all these things. So
awesome.
Sorry. So the Ohioan in me says, if you just buried all your utilities a foot deeper than what we do here, and you put the water pipes in metal instead of plastic like we do here, like you wouldn't have had any of these issues. I mean, that's literally the difference. It's a zoning issue.
Existing and future. I mean, my entire house is flexible piping. It could all freeze solid and it wouldn't crack.
Okay, so you have PEX in your whole house.
Yeah. So from this point forward, they're doing stuff to avoid these freezes. But we had cast iron pipes that were collapsing before we built this house. So it's the history that we can't overcome.
Right.
The other interesting thing on metering, and I know this is true of Illinois. I'm not sure about where you were, Patrick, but the meters are actually inside people's homes. So if you send a meter reader to read the house.
Correct. Yes. The meter reader had to come in your house and come into the basement to read the meter. Yeah. Yes. I remember that same thing.
Which I think would be very awkward in our world today.
Well, we find it awkward, but at least the meter's inside the house and you didn't have to worry about it freezing.
Right. That's true. That's a true statement.
Jared, I appreciate you bringing some real world examples in a really tough week. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unsung heroes of that week. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that's even marketed. And I think there'll be some really good stories and that can be shared, but there's a lot of people at the city that busted their tails that we don't know about.
Well, I will tell you there's a pretty good document, high-level document that's on the website that outlines kind of department by department how we were responding. It was also presented at the end of last month's council meeting, so if you want to go back and listen. But there was a lot of lessons learned, I would say, but it's difficult to prepare for something that happens once in what was it, 71 years? You said, Patrick, the last time it was 52. So yeah.
I do have one more lesson learned from one of our neighbors. Is he had a water shut-off tool but he didn't have the key. So he didn't call anybody. He called the utility. So his water was running about 20 minutes, and he can't get back to the house until probably late March 29. That's what he said, because they have to fix the entire house. So what is there any plan for this do we have some sort of outreach or anything like that for this kind of tools to be handy? Like, how should we prepare our resident? That's ultimately what I'm trying to get to in this kind of, somebody doesn't have a key or shut off tool. So it's a disaster. It was a disaster.
You go to Home Depot and you buy the key of the shutoff tool. And honestly, I have one too. And the other is, even if you can't get the new shutoff cover open, just smash it with a hammer.
So what is the liability we're looking at? What's the liability in that case?
It's not a recommendation of the board, Patrick.
Somebody.
It's not a recommendation of the board. I'm just talking about how you get it open so you can shut it off.
Oh, no,
Let's.
And I have no problem having this recorded. I'm telling people, go break it open with a hammer.
So I will tell you that there is currently on the books today in Coppell, there's an ordinance that says it's unlawful to mess with the meter. We are literally as we speak, there are people working on changing that language coming out of last week's event or last.
And I will tell you, the new meter covers that you guys have put in require a special new key, and no one was told we needed a special new key to open them. And so my attitude was, I will smash it open with a hammer if I have to get into it.
But so when we look at our framework,
this is a great smart city conversation to have, which is we shouldn't make it more complicated when we put in a smart meter on your water meter to open the meter.
So Aaron, what were you about to say? And then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah. There was a lot of conversation about the key on the Coppell Facebook page, which is totally private, because everybody ran out of the key. The stores ran out of the key, but this piece supports through our framework. The first to the left hand side, the communication and.
Aaron, I love the way you're going with this. Thank you.
So, these messages, further support investing in that piece to get a portal of communication open with the constituents.
Yep, totally agree.
The unofficial recommendation, Jared, is that all cities should be having what do we do in the next 100 years that we can inform today.
Yep.
So that's right.
I can tell you some cool things that came out of it. There's a how-to video that we put together.
I saw that how-to video, but you have to have the special key.
Yep. So keys, I will tell you, in general, they were even hard for our crews. I told you we had more crews than we've ever had running around shutting off water. The keys were difficult for us to acquire as well. So,
but even the key I've owned for a decade does not work on the current water meter.
Right, it's a new key.
So,
understood. I was just going to say it's supposed to be a rare occurrence for you to have to actually get into that box and do what you need to do.
Well, it's not as rare as you think. After the storm, we had this shower stem or whatever it's called. It's broke open, right? So it's gonna. So I have to shut off the water before I can fix it. So it's not as rare as you think, right? Anytime we are trying to repair something, we're gonna have to go shut it off.
So it also comes down to the age of your home, because I can tell you, Aaron, if he's got PEX pipe, he also has a water shut off in his garage or in his laundry room for his whole house without having to get into the meter box. My home actually here in Richardson it was built in 2012. It has two places where I can shut it off without actually touching the meter.
You're much more fortunate than what I have, because if I have to shut the water off to my whole house, guess what? I have the meter at the curb.
Gotcha. I'm with you. I mean, I've had
And
homes
most of Coppell is the meter at the curb.
I'm going to propose that we move past this.
Yes,
Great
I move
discussion.
to adjourn. I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right. So we all in favor of adjourning? That is a unanimous vote. Tiffany, and meeting is adjourned at 8:18 p.m. this Monday, March 1st. Thank you, everybody. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
everyone.
it. It was awesome. You guys have a great night, and we will talk very, very soon.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good night.